Today you're going to be making your own ceramic palette. Artists use palettes to mix paint. You're going to be creating a silhouette stencil. A silhouette is a shape without details on the inside. To create your stencil, find a shape you like. Ignore the details on the inside and just focus on the outer line. On your piece of paper, fill in with your shape as large as you can, touching all four sides of the paper. Then cut it out. We're going to use the stencil on top of our clay slab. To make a slab, we're going to use a clay board, wooden slats, rolling pin, and a chunk of clay. The wooden slats are the two wooden pieces on the side. Think of them like train tracks that help to make sure the clay doesn't get rolled too thin. Your rolling pin is like the train, resting on the wooden slats. Do not let your handle rest on the wooden slats. It takes quite a bit of even pressure to press the clay down. You can rotate or flip the clay as needed to make sure that your clay is wider or longer depending on the size of your stencil. Please be sure to take your stencil and check that it fits inside the clay. Now we're going to use a clay needle to lightly trace around our shape. Hold the clay needle straight up and down in order to do this. I am not cutting all the way through in case I make a mistake. If I make a mistake, I can easily smudge it out with my finger and redraw it. Now with the clay needle, hold it straight up and down and cut firmly so the needle is scraping the board. That way you know the clay is fully getting cut all the way through. Wipe away any little extra bits of clay and smooth it out. Now we're going to create wells in our paint palette. I don't mean these kinds of wells. Wells are the spaces in the palette that hold the paint. Our well should be no more than halfway through the thickness of our clay slab. We're going to very lightly draw the shapes where we're going to create our wells with the clay needle. It's very important that you leave a space of clay between each of the wells and between the well and the edge of your slab. If you make a mistake, you can always smooth out your shape with your fingertip and then redraw it. We're going to use a tool called the ribbon tool in order to scoop out the clay. You'll notice that there are some that are pointy, which is great for tracing around the inside of the shape, and then there's usually flatter parts that are good for flattening out and scooping out the bottom. As you go, remove any extra clay from the edge of your wells or any clay that is stuck to your ribbon tool. Continue the process of scooping out the clay for each of your wells, making sure there is still some clay between the wells and the edge of your shape. Let's review the whole process start to finish. Draw your stencil on a piece of paper, filling it up as much as possible. Cut out your stencil, ensuring that it is nice, clean edge. Roll out your clay, resting your rolling pin on the wooden slats and checking to make sure that your stencil fits. Lightly cut out your stencil with the clay needle and then cut it all the way through. Use the clay needle to lightly draw where the wells are going to go, and then use the ribbon tool to scoop out your wells, making sure there's space between the wells and that it doesn't go more than halfway deep into the clay slab. Once this is done, we'll let it dry, bake, and then we'll glaze it in order to have our own paint palette that we can use later.